Good morning. It is Friday, December 30th. I'm Abby Huntsman, and this is a Fox News alert breaking overnight. It happened again. An officer is shot in the line of duty. We have the latest on his condition at this hour and what prompted that shooting.
And just breaking overnight as well, Russia responds, taking aim at the U.S. after the Obama administration issues a series of sanctions for alleged election interference. So was the president's play just another shot at Donald Trump? We're live in Washington with the latest breaking details.
And in the good old days, you used to have wine, and you used to have to wine and dine them to win a lady's heart. But now, not only is chivalry dead, but so is the dinner date. Did you guys hear that? But you know what? We're actually having dinner all morning here on Fox and Friends. We have bacon. I can smell it. I'm going to eat it. And if you want it, you should wake up and make some bacon and join it, have it with us as well, because mornings are better with bacon and with these guys.
About their New Year's resolution.
All people that are cooler than us.
Isn't there a huge
people
but there's a huge conflict here, isn't there?
What is it?
We're just going to be piling on the bacon as we talk about New Year's resolutions.
No, you do.
I mean, come on.
You pile it on in
doesn't have to lose
2016
weight,
and then you improve in 2017.
Yeah.
So it's do it now while you
It's a
can.
little bacon now.
Have you guys figured out your New Year's resolutions yet?
No, I'm not doing it.
We're going to work on it.
Well, before the end of the show, we've got to figure it out.
Oh, are we? Yeah, send us your New Year's
Send us
resolutions,
yours.
please.
Help us out because we haven't decided yet.
All right, turns out we actually have news to cover today, too. There's a Fox News alert. Russia retaliating after being slammed with new sanctions for alleged election hacking.
Yeah, and a furious Vladimir Putin announcing sanctions of his own in a swift revenge against the Obama administration.
Let's get right to Garrett Tenney. He's live in Washington with the breaking details. Good morning, Garrett.
Good morning, Ed, Pete, and Abby. Russia had promised that they would retaliate against any sanctions from the U.S. and less than 24 hours later, it appears they have done just that. Reuters news agency is reporting that Russia has announced plans to expel 35 U.S. diplomats and ban U.S. diplomatic staff from using 2 buildings in Moscow. That comes in response to a long list of sanctions the White House announced yesterday, including plans to shut down 2 compounds in Maryland and New York that have been used by Russian personnel for intelligence purposes, and declaring 35 Russian intelligence operatives persona non grata and giving them 72 hours to leave the country. With that announcement, President Obama said the U.S. may take additional steps against Moscow as well. His statement reads in part, "These actions are not the sum total of our response to Russia's aggressive activities. We will continue to take a variety of actions at a time and place of our choosing, some of which will not be publicized." Russian officials widely mocked the president's announcement, including Russia's UK embassy, which tweeted, "President Obama expels Russian 35 diplomats in Cold War deja vu, as everybody, including American people, will be glad to see the last of this hapless administration. Lame duck." As for the incoming president-elect, Donald Trump, who has long questioned the intelligence community's findings of Russian interference surrounding the election, said in a statement, "It's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things. Nevertheless, in the interest of our country and its great people, I will meet with leaders of the intelligence community next week in order to be updated on the facts of this situation." And of course, the big question with these sanctions is, what will President-elect Trump decide to do? Well, last night, incoming White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus said that they will wait until they have met with the intelligence community and gotten that information before making a decision on how they will go forward. Back to y'all.
All right. Thank you, Garrett.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate it, Garrett.
As Pete was saying, serious intellectual thinkers are rolling over in their grave this morning when you see this tweet of a lame duck. I mean, is this really how we're doing diplomacy?
It's modern diplomacy. But I think what's important to clarify here is, yes, we're looking into, no one wants or believes that there should be foreign interference in our elections. But let's be clear up front. The election itself was not hacked.
According
the
to who?
vote count was not hacked.
According to who?
According to President Obama.
Exactly.
According to this administration.
Even President Obama has said
not
that.
a single vote was affected by what Russia did in its actual implementation. Now, were they trying to tamper with our process and our legitimacy? Yes, and that's unfortunate.
Well,
the timing significant.
The timing is, because that's the big question, is why are they coming out now with just 3 weeks left in his presidency?
Yeah.
Here's what Eric Schultz, the White House Deputy Press Secretary, said about that yesterday.
The president is leaving office in a couple weeks, but he's the president from now until then. And the president-elect, once he assumes office on January 20th, will be in a position to make these sorts of decisions. Our bottom line is that what Russia has been engaged in over the last few months and years is unacceptable. It's outside the norms of diplomatic behavior, and the president is sending a message today to tell them to cut it out. And that's why he ordered aggressive actions.
Well, a couple things. Cut it out. I mean, that doesn't sound.
Cut it out, didn't work.
Vlad, cut it out. But Eric Schultz, good person, know him, have worked with him a lot at the White House, and I think what he's trying to say is, yes, they're pushing back now. They're trying to get aggressive, but when we're talking about timing, this hacking situation started some 18 months ago, summer of 2015, roughly. It continued beyond that. But why didn't they do anything sooner if this was such an imperative? Part of it, the White House says, is, look, they didn't want to interfere in the election. They didn't want to pour gasoline on the fire. But if this was going on and it was so awful, so horrible, we needed to, teach Vladimir Putin a lesson. Why did we wait until the final 3 weeks? When you put this together with another story, the Israel resolution story, it looks like a president in the last 3 weeks is not taking bold action, but is trying to salvage a legacy here.
Well, and doing the opposite instead. I mean, he's looking political and not salvaging a legacy, just doubling down on a legacy that hasn't been effective. And Kellyanne Conway does a very nice job usually articulating these types of things. Was on last night talking about, well, why would this be happening? Is this have anything to do with politics? She was on Hannity last night. This is what Kellyanne Conway said.
I was really disappointed to read in David Sanger's New York Times piece this evening the allegation or the supposition that perhaps one reason that these sanctions are taking place is to, quote, box in President-elect Trump, forcing him to take a position or otherwise once he takes office. I hope that this isn't motivated by politics even a little bit. I would say it's just remarkable to me that we're talking about sanctions against Russia just days after I would call sanctions against Israel. So I think just in the last couple of days, you see this flurry of activity by a tough President Obama as he exits office, and I guess is burnishing those last couple of moments, semicolons worth of his legacy. But at the same time, the new president will have an opportunity to re-examine our relationships geopolitically.
Yeah, I think the
semicolon of a legacy.
I like
right,
that.
and I think she's spot on there. There are two big questions here: why now, and how political was this move? And you brought this up, Ed, when the resolution came forward at the UN last week. You said, would this have happened if Hillary Clinton were the incoming president? I do wonder that same thing in this scenario.
Sure, because you're leaving a mess for Donald Trump, and you're exacerbating some of the mess as well. You say by taking on an ally like Israel.
You're also continuing to attempt to delegitimize. I don't know if you can zoom in on this on the headline. The headline in the New York Times, U.S. punishes Russia over election hacking. I also did label it properly as the failing New York Times.
I was wondering, did that come in from the paper?
I added that on top. Yeah, but over election hacking, there was no election hacking. So when you try to...
There was hacking of emails. There was
hacking of DNC,
like
no one's saying there wasn't manipulation outside of it. The result itself was not hacked. So we should be very clear about that. But also,
in fairness to President Obama, he was way ahead of the curve on Russia, wasn't he? Wasn't he saying it was our biggest geopolitical... Oh, wait. No, it was the other guy. Watch.
Russia, I indicated, is a geopolitical foe. Not number one. Excuse me. It's a geopolitical foe, and I said in the same paragraph, I said, and Iran is the greatest national security threat we face.
In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because the Cold War has been over for 20 years.
This was a really strong moment for Mitt Romney back in that day. But you look back on that, and here you have President Obama trying to get tough on Russia, and you have to wonder, with these sanctions, we've been here before, haven't we?
Sure.
A few years ago with the Crimea and all that.
And we didn't do anything.
What did that do?
Right. Well, so the 80s want their foreign policy back. And you underestimated just how big of a deal Russia and Vladimir Putin turned out to be. And at the time in that debate, isn't it also interesting that President Obama appeared to be like, hey, give Vlad a chance here.
Yes, yeah.
Like, we can work together. And now you flip it around. They're saying Donald Trump is too close to Vlad. Well, and Putin is a bad guy. Well, wait, in 2012 in that debate, you said we were going to all be friends.
Exactly right. And they annex Crimea. They cross red lines and support the Bashar al-Assad regime. We do nothing. Now what we do instead is, for this election violation, is we expel 35 spies from the U.S. and close down 2 compounds. I mean, it's a slap on the wrist diplomatically. It's the type of thing we would have done in the Cold War. Happened all the time. Now, this is a big, decisive action. No, it's nothing.
It's like fixing a broken arm with a Band-Aid. And you think about expelling these diplomats. What is that actually going to do at the end of the day? Yeah. Why not hit on his inner circle? Where is he going to get hit the hardest, right? Isn't that the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And these compounds that we're going after, they're sort of mysterious. There's one in Maryland, just outside D.C. You can see it there. I think it's about an hour and a half outside D.C. on the eastern shore of Maryland. Maryland. Very beautiful area. I've been there many times. I've never been to that compound, I can assure you.
Well, apparently they've got great parties there.
They
have brought in Americans, made them feel at home, served them vodka. You know, it's
one
like
of the
one
Russian
big party.
women involved says, we go there because we want to be secret and we want to. What is happening?
I just love when do we call things compounds versus houses? You know, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Also, it's been in place there. How long has that house been there, filled with
I think
Russians?
it's the late 60s, early 70s, somewhere in that range.
So why are we? That is why are we doing something about this now? And what does that ultimately go? What impact is that going to have on our relationship with Russia?
None.
Yeah.
I mean,
At the end of the day.
negligible, because they're going to retaliate, as they've said, and do the same thing to us, kick out 35 of our spies, CIA agents, or under diplomatic cover, and shut down 2 of our compounds. So it's a tit for tat with no actual consequence. And here we are with Russia still running the table and doing what they want.
Out the door.
It'd be really interesting to go in that compound now, though, just to kind of see how they left it.
I feel like there's like a
All
machine
the
gun
bugs
range in
that
the
were left
basement or
behind.
something. Yeah.
It's like a summer rental where at the end you leave it, there's like
Now it
towels
could
on the
become a summer
floor.
rental.
You know?
Up the rent.
Yeah, we
The
do.
Eastern Shore is a beautiful area. I bet you they'll flip it around now. You know,
All right,
might help cut the deficit a little
Flip
bit.
it or
We do have some other headlines this
plan.
morning. Let's toss over to Jillian Turner this morning. Good to see you, Jillian.
Good to see you. You guys should get that puppy up on Airbnb.
That's a great point. How much do you think it
make
go
a
for?
killing.
I think you're right.
All right, here's some headlines for you. This is a Fox News alert. A Texas police officer shot during a routine traffic stop. Shots ringing out across a parking lot as Officer Chris Bumpus tried to arrest a man with an outstanding warrant outside Fort Worth. Both the officer and the suspect were hurt and rushed to the hospital. Bumpus is now out of surgery, thankfully, and in stable condition. The Navy veteran was recently just named Rookie of the Year. Good for him. And developing right now, unprecedented security in place as the world prepares to usher in 2017. ISIS warning about brand new attacks. It's a live look at Times Square, where you can see trucks are blocking the streets filled with sand-filled trucks to protect nearly 2 million people planning to ring in the new year right around the corner. 7,000 officers are going to patrol these crowds, and helicopters will keep watch from overhead. Right now, there are no credible threats against Times Square on this New Year's Eve. Now to extreme weather. A major winter storm slamming parts of the Northeast at this hour. Heavy snow and whipping winds making for a dangerous morning commute. More than a foot of snow falling. In Maine, a car you can see right there rolling onto its side over the slick roads. But the good news, much of this mess is moving out just in time for New Year's Eve. Those are your headlines.
That's good news.
All right, thank you, Jillian.
Thanks,
Times
Jillian.
Square looks so vacant right now. It's going to be crazy.
I'm sure we'll have a few live shots there. All right. Well, the Obama administration is rushing to resettle refugees during their last days in office. Was this another attempt to hurt and complicate things for the incoming administration? We're going to ask Congressman Louis Gohmert when he joins us live. There he is next.
And Hollywood A-listers boycotting President-elect Trump's inauguration based on so-called principles. But where were those same principles when they performed for despots and dictators? They don't want to talk about that, do they? We're back with the Fox News alert. Tension growing between the U.S. and Russia, already at an all-time high following President Obama's decision to impose sanctions on that country. Some members of the president's own party speaking out, though, saying the sanctions should be tougher. Congressman Adam Schiff saying, quote, we must evaluate the success of our response using only one critical metric. Has it dissuaded Russia from further interference and bad conduct? And I believe that other more punitive measures will need to be undertaken. That from a Democrat.
Wow, joining us now to weigh in, Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert. Good morning to you.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
So a big news day this morning. First off the top, just your reaction to President Obama's actions yesterday.
Well, if you're really going to punish somebody, what he did is not all that much of a punishment. I was hosting for Sean Hannity yesterday, and Mike from Ohio called in and said, this is really not a punishment because these 35 Russian expelled diplomats just choose the sanctuary city they want to go to and go there. You don't have to leave. Just go to a sanctuary city. They'll protect you. You know, Chicago, San Francisco, they promised, you know. So it's not so bad. No, it's not really punishment.
Why now? But why now? So many things, so many violations, so many things Russia has done over the last, under this administration. Now this and this action.
Well, we saw these kind of actions when we were each in middle school. You know, when somebody got their feelings hurt, what did they do? They tried to slap back. But if you look at what this president done, 2012, I know you remembered, you reported on it, Ed, but the president said, tell Vladimir, I'll have a lot more flexibility.
Sure.
So when he was willing to sell out the country and Vladimir didn't take him up on his offer, then it was a slapback, just like in middle school. But if you look at what the president's doing at the same time with immigrants, I immediately thought of Batman Begins. Isn't that the one with Liam Neeson? And what do you do if you want to destroy the big city? Well, first they let the criminals go. What's the president doing? He's letting as many criminals as he can go. And then you bring in outsiders to help destroy what's left. And this president, he's been told by ISIS, we're going to get terrorists in with the refugees. And he says, great, let's bring them on. We're going to have them all here for Trump.
Who is Donald Trump in all this? Is he the superhero in your thing?
I see Trump as a guy that comes sweeping in with the medicine that saves the city. So
how does he do that, though? When you're dealing with Vladimir Putin, when you're dealing with Russia, every president coming in has had the opportunity to press the reset button. Trump will have that same opportunity. Yeah. What does he do to get it right?
Well, the thing I think that Trump has going for him as a student of history, majoring in history, keep studying. And I told Donald Trump this back in September, we were talking privately, that you look at the presidents that did best with foreign policy, they were presidents that were perceived as being a little bit crazy. Teddy Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan. I said, remember when Reagan was portrayed in Saturday Night Live walking around, where's the red button? I'm ready to launch missiles. Well, this is Trump. I said, you've got a chance. He said, they say I'm crazy. I said, that's why you will be great at foreign relations.
Real quick, you came in as well to talk about this sharp increase in refugees coming into this country. How do you make sure that they're actually vetted and that they don't that they're not terrorists or don't,
you take the testimony of Comey and those that have testified before our committee on this issue. They have said, yes, they will vet them, but they have absolutely no information with which to vet them. Yeah. There is no way to know. Comey said, when they came from Iraq, we had all of Iraq's governmental records we could check against.
Sure.
From Syria, from these other places, we got nothing. We have zero. We have nothing to check their records
right now,
against.
the default is to let in as opposed to do further
Exactly.
scrutiny. Yeah.
And so, he should be the president should be in the position of a doctor. First, do no harm, and this president's doing harm as he goes out. It's a mess.
Congressman Lugo, appreciate you coming in.
It's so great to be with you. You guys are doing great. Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, Hollywood A-listers boycotting President-elect Trump's inauguration based on so-called principles. But where were those principles when they performed for dictators and despots around the world?
And in the good old days, you used to have to wine and dine them to win a lady's heart, right? But now, not only is chivalry dead, but so is the dinner date.
Really?
For millennials, that's what they're saying. We're going to look into it.
But they like to go to Chick-fil-A, they say.
That's the date, apparently. Welcome back. Now, some quick headlines. The parole hearing for a notorious Manson cult killer has just been pushed back. The court says it needs time to investigate brand new information that reportedly involves allegations Patricia Krenwinkel was abused by Charles Manson or someone else. Krenwinkel was found guilty of helping Manson murder 7 people nearly 5 decades ago. And Drexel University is defending its professor who tweeted, quote, "All I want for Christmas is white genocide." In a statement, the school says it supports the rights of its faculty members to freely express their opinions, calling the professor's tweet protected speech. I guess they protect that, but not other forms. Ed, over to you.
Yes, there's the First Amendment, but that one, wow. Many celebrities have proudly announced they want nothing to do with President-elect Donald Trump's swearing-in celebrations, something he says he simply doesn't care about.
Yeah. In a recent tweet, Mr. Trump said the so-called A-list celebrities are all wanting tickets to the inauguration, but look what they did for Hillary. Nothing. I want the people.
But as these stars boycott Mr. Trump, there's no shortage of stars who have performed for thugs, dictators, yet with little outrage.
Yeah, here to weigh in is author of Con Job and editor of ConservativeBlackChick.com, Crystal Wright. Crystal, good morning to you.
Good morning, Abby.
Good to see you. So let's just show you a list of celebrities who have thus far declined to perform at the inauguration of Elton John, Celine Dion, Garth Brooks, Gene Simmons, Andrea Bocelli. The list goes on. No surprise here, really, right? I mean, also, as we just mentioned, President-elect Trump says, I could care less about this.
No, liberal Hollywood was in the tank for Hillary Clinton, remember? I mean, you had Lena Dunham, the list goes on and on. So it's no surprise that these guys say, oh, you know, we're not going to perform for Trump. We're not going to put country first, right? That's what liberal Hollywood stars do. But as you pointed out in the tease before we started talking, a lot of celebrities don't have any moral high ground or ethics when it comes to making money and performing for Libyan dictator Gaddafi, Beyonce, Usher. They were really happy to perform for Gaddafi.
You're right. We have that list, Crystal. Look at this. They performed Gaddafi, Beyonce, Usher, Mariah Carey, Lionel Richie, Nelly Furtado, and 50 Cent as well. How about that? They don't have a problem with that. Performers for Angola President Jose Eduardo dos Santos. They haven't been involved in this Trump deal, but they did perform for him, Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey. And so, Crystal, what message do you take that from? They're willing to take the money from dictators. But people are outraged about the possibility of performing for a Republican president.
Right. The message here is that celebrities like Beyonce and Usher are utter hypocrites. They have no moral high ground and no ethics. And nothing says that you hate America and your country more than refusing to perform for the next president, right? What happened to the peaceful transition of power that Hillary Clinton lauded? Remember that? Yeah. She kept ribbing Donald Trump. But it's because, by the way, speaking of Beyonce, who loves performing for Gaddafi and despots. She performed for President Barack Obama's, I think one of his inaugural, maybe it was the second one.
2013,
right, right. So, okay, but Trump is a white Republican, so of course, oh no, you can't perform for him. And we all know, guys, that if the roles were reversed, these same liberal celebrities would be calling their peers racist for not performing if it was Obama and it was happening, right? If celebrities were daring to boycott the first black president, oh, you guys are a bunch of racists, but it's okay to boycott the white Republican dude, right?
Yeah.
Coming in.
You know what? I think he should just get members of our military, so many talented individuals to get up on the stage and perform. I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day, and that's what his campaign was about from day one. So we'll see.
I've nominated Abby Huntsman, by the way. Crystal, I don't know if you've heard her voice, but we might get her by the end of this show to do it as like just a New Year's surprise. I'm not joking. She's got a great voice.
I'm ready, Abby. I want to hear it.
Oh, Crystal, I don't think that's ever going to happen. It's good to see you this morning.
Thanks,
Have a good New Year.
And Gene Simmons of KISS will join us on the program next hour. We'll ask him about this as well.
Yeah, that'll be great. So the ultimate disrespect for our nation's cops, this painting depicting police officers as pigs, this is now hanging inside our nation's Capitol. And who approved that? It's a question. We've got it up next.
And it's not an official national holiday, but it should be. I'm telling you, it's National Bacon Day. Up next, a special Fox and Friends bacon taste test. That might be why Pete's not here right now. He ran out there. Where are the judges?
That is hilarious. But first, happy birthday to LeBron James. He is 32 years old today. Happy birthday, LeBron. 15 minutes now at the top of the hour, and an update to a story that we brought you earlier this week regarding fraud in the food stamp program. So we reported that in 2016, $70 million was wasted on food stamp fraud. That was incorrect. The latest information from 2009 to 2011 shows the fraud at 1.3%, which is approximately $853 million for those 3 years combined. Nationally, food stamp trafficking is on the decline. With that, over to you, Ed.
Okay, an honest mistake, and you're my friend and colleague, and I support you. One Republican congressman arguing Russia may have actually done the U.S. a favor by exposing the corruption of the Democratic Party. Watch.
I'm all for doing what's necessary to protect the election here, but there's no suggestion that Russia hacked into our voting systems or anything like that. If Russia succeeded in giving the American people information that was accurate, then they merely did what the media should have done.
Does he have a point, or is he missing the point? Here to debate it, conservative talk show host Dr. Gina Loudon and Democratic strategist Richard Goodstein. Good to see you both. Dr. Loudon, I want to start with you. Isn't this Republican congressman missing the fact, though, that people were harmed here? I mean, the Democratic National Committee was hacked. John Podesta had his email hacked. That seems to get lost in some of those comments.
Well, I think it's important to note that John Podesta actually had his email phished, meaning
their own security blocks or protocol did not preclude him from actually giving up his own password.
Sure, but his emails were stolen, regardless of how it done. His emails were stolen. We'll get to the substance of the email, but they were taken.
They were, but this is the thing. No one is denying that they're true. No one is saying that anything that was released is untrue. And you have to consider too, Ed, that there are other sources that collude with the fact that there was a lot of corruption going on within the Democrat Party. There were the James O'Keefe tapes, of course. There was the quid pro quo. Why can none of us say that? Quid pro quo that Fox News uncovered. And so there were a lot of instances that said, hey, there's a lot of corruption going on within the Democrat Party, and the mainstream media was doing nothing to expose it.
Richard, your chance to respond.
Yeah. Couple things. First, I've heard Gina and other Trump surrogates say that somehow Podesta had this coming. That would be like Richard Nixon saying that, oh, this Watergate break-in was nonsense because if the DNC had only had better security, my goons would never have gotten the materials from the Watergate. That's what we're hearing. One. Two, imagine, Ed, if criminals, Russian criminals, had gone into Trump Towers and stolen Donald Trump's tax returns for the past 20 years and made them public. Would Congressman Frank say, hey, they were just doing what the press should have been doing? What are they saying? That the press should have been stealing? We're using hacking. It's stealing. Is that what they're saying? That the press should be stealing information and putting it out there willy-nilly? I don't think so.
I'm going to come back to Richard on the substance of the email so we can get that in there as well. But Gina, there's a fair question there. If the Russians had gone into Trump Tower and stolen the tax returns, you'd be okay with them being put out there?
Well, let's not forget that some of Trump's tax returns were stolen.
A couple pages.
But I don't think that's the point here. No one's saying that it's okay, that the Russians meddle in any way. But what we are saying, and I think it's important to note, and I think there really is a story here, is that the mainstream media did no investigation. Where is the evidence, Ed, that any investigation was done into the corruption of the Democrats? And if they were that desperate, we have to ask ourselves logically, if they were that desperate to win the election that they were willing to resort to that kind of corruption, not only exposed by WikiLeaks, but also others, then why don't we believe that they're desperate right now and willing to do just about anything to undermine the Trump administration?
Okay, I pressed Gina before. Richard, I'm going to press you now then on the substance of the emails. As Gina has been pointing out, I'll give you one example with the Clinton Foundation, the millions of dollars that went to a Moroccan king. We didn't know about a lot of that until we saw these emails. The substance of the emails were not pretty for the Clinton team.
Right. So what you're saying, Ed, is that stealing somebody else's private information, the ends justify the means, right? I actually heard very little on this and other networks about what we call a classic pay for play, which is Donald Trump giving money to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of Florida, so that she could shut down an investigation of Trump University, okay? All the stuff about Morocco, incidentally, there was zero that came out from WikiLeaks or anything else that tied any official actions by Hillary Clinton to anything done by the foundation. She was dissociated from the foundation. I mean, we can relitigate it. The fact of the matter is, what Congressman Franks is saying is the media should be stealing information from whoever they want and putting it out there. And I'm suggesting to you, and even Gina would agree, that that's wrong. If it was Trump, if it was Clinton, or anybody else, I don't think Fox wants to have dirty hands, nor does anybody else.
Gina, 15.
And yet everybody feels like, oh, it's fine, whatever, it's out there, let's just go with it.
Gina, 10 seconds for you.
I think we expect our enemies to do things to sabotage our system. What I don't think we expect is for that party, the Democrat Party, to be so corrupt and for the media to collude with them and not even investigate the corruption that was happening.
Richard, we'll have to leave it there. You both got your points in there. Happy New Year to both of you. Appreciate having you.
You too.
Happy New Year to you.
Still ahead, the ultimate disrespect. A painting depicting police officers as pigs, literally as pigs, now hanging inside our nation's capital. Who approved that? We'll get into it next. And we're counting down the top political sound bites of 2016. Who could possibly forget this one?
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Okay.
Well, as the new year comes closer and closer, it's time to rewind politically. After a contentious election season, we're about to take a stroll down campaign memory lane for some of the hits and miss moments of 2016. So who better to break that down for us than Lee Carter, who's the president and partner at Maslansky and Partners, and she joins me now with a look back. So you've done an outstanding job throughout debates, everything that's gone on, conventions, covering the top political moments. So we said, pick some out for us, some key moments that really moved the needle in 2016. We're going to play 4 of them. You could probably do 50 of them if you needed to.
We could.
We'll play 4, and then I want you to explain why you chose those. So the first one is Donald Trump talking about self-funding in a political ad. Take a look.
The establishment, the media, the special interest, the lobbyists, the donors, they're all against me. I'm self-funding my campaign. I don't owe anybody anything. I only owe it to the American people to do a great job.
So, Lee, interesting pick, not one that would have jumped off the screen to me initially. Why that one?
The reason is he had a theme throughout the campaign that he was not the establishment, that he was different, that he was on the side of the people. And that whole message turned into Drain the Swamp. And what I think is so important about this message was this wasn't about Donald Trump the man, this was about a movement against the establishment. And by setting that up, it was a really, really smart strategy. And it continued throughout the campaign, and I think it's one of the reasons that he catapulted to now.
Interesting. Straight to camera, straight to the people, eventually became the tagline, Drain the Swamp, which we all heard at the end. But the beginning was, I'm not part of that machine.
That's right.
I'm detached from it and won't be beholden to it. Interesting. The next one is one we're very familiar with. Let's just go to the clip.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
All right, deplorables who are irredeemable. I mean, in many ways, the election was litigated on that.
This was an absolute unfortunate moment for Hillary Clinton. I think this was one of the moments that things really shifted in Donald Trump's favor. It's one thing to criticize your opponent, which she did all throughout the campaign. Her whole strategy was Donald Trump is dangerous. But this was criticizing the supporters. And she said I was going to be a president for all Americans. She said that we're stronger together. And you know what? This showed that that wasn't authentic, that it wasn't true, and she was really only on the side of her supporters.
It wasn't even she didn't misspeak. I mean, this was part of a speech.
This was part of a speech, and this is something that she obviously felt, and really, it emboldened Trump supporters. You know, people wore it as a badge of honor to say, I'm a deplorable. It really backfired, and I think this is one of the biggest gifts that Hillary Clinton gave to Donald Trump in the election.
Yeah, everything's caught on tape. Speaking of caught on tape, Donald Trump had this to say at a debate, and you're saying it's one of the top moments as well. Take a listen.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
I will keep you in suspense about the election outcome.
He was a non-traditional candidate with non-traditional, unexpected answers. What I think is so fascinating about this is he was criticized so widely for this moment. People said over and over again, this isn't right, this isn't fair, and then look at the result. At the end of the day, he wasn't the one that was leaving us in suspense.
That's exactly right. The irony of this, sometimes it can't even be written. The fourth and final one for today is a moment that, well, we all remember. It's just a moment. Take a listen.
Name a foreign leader that you respect.
I guess I'm having an Aleppo moment in the former president of Mexico.
But I'm giving you the whole world.
I know.
Anybody in the world you like. Anybody. Pick any leader.
The former president of Mexico.
Which one?
I'm having a brain.
Name anybody.
He had that brain moment. He also had the Aleppo moment. There's always one of those.
It was really unfortunate for Gary Johnson. Up until that point, we were talking about how much he was going to hurt the candidates. I think at this point, we just realized he wasn't going to be a real threat to either candidate.
You're right. A Libertarian candidate had a chance in this election cycle. He gave it away.
That's right.
Lee Carter, thank you very much for
Great to be here.
Appreciate it. All right, Bristol Palin calling celebrities sissies for refusing to perform at President-elect Trump's inauguration. Her message to Hollywood next.
Good morning to you. It is Friday, December 30th. We've made it to the end of the week.
Almost.
I'm Abby Huntsman. We begin with a Fox News alert. This is breaking overnight. Russia responds, taking aim at the United States after the Obama administration issues a series of sanctions for alleged election interference. So was the president's play more about Trump than about Russia? We've got more on this coming up.
And the ultimate sign of disrespect, a painting depicting police officers as pigs, now hanging inside our nation's capital. Who in the world approved that? We are going to take a closer look.
And Hollywood A-listers being called sissies for refusing to perform on Inauguration Day for Donald Trump. One of those celebrities not available? KISS frontman Gene Simmons. What's he doing instead? We'll ask him live. Because mornings are better with KISS.
Yes.
On the couch this
I
morning.
know, and we're going to ask them what their New Year's resolutions will be. We also want to know what your New Year's resolutions are, so make sure you send them in.
Yeah, send them in.
Later
Friends
in the
at
show.
foxnews.com.
I wonder, we're going to ask Gene Simmons his. It'll be interesting.
Maybe it's working out more to get pecs like
Maybe,
Pete.
yeah. I'm never going to mention the weight room ever again.
He was like,
ever again.
I love that music when I was like lifted.
This is when I was 17. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
We have a lot of news, though, because you're seeing President Obama going out with like this furious burst of activity.
Yeah.
First going after Israel at the UN, now going after Vladimir Putin and Russia with these sanctions. But immediately, just like the Israel situation, actually, you don't just have Republicans saying these seem kind of weak. You have some top Democrats on Capitol Hill who went after the president over Israel, saying, why are you attacking this key ally? Other Democrats now saying, wait a second, these are weak.
Yeah.
We're throwing out some diplomats. If you really believe that Russia, did these horrible things, then why are we not going after them much harder?
We've been here before. We've put forward sanctions in the past. What has that done? What do we have to speak of that? Here's what they've done yesterday. U.S. actions against Russia, so you can better understand this. 9 Russian entities and people sanctioned. 35 Russian diplomats, they were expelled from the U.S. 2 Russian compounds closed in the U.S. and possible covert cyber actions. That just breaks it all down. But the big question is, what impact is that ultimately going to have?
Yeah, I mean, in the failing New York Times this morning, as it's properly
It's not
labeled,
written in there.
No, it is. It is now. It's been renamed. The first CIA source asked about what these things would actually do says it's a slap on the wrist at best. I mean, this is not something that's going to affect the way Russia operates in this country. They'll replace their intelligence agents, and they're going to expel 35 of ours and close 2 facilities in Russia. So this is nothing that's going to impact how they actually operate. And I think that's what's important. If you're going to be punitive, make it work, make it hurt.
Right.
And in this case, it doesn't at all. It's purely symbolic. And after all the things Russia's gotten away with, Crimea, what's going on with Bashar al-Assad, this is now how we restore it.
And also, the timing is really interesting because you said, what is the purpose of this? Why 3 weeks before President Obama's out of office? And how political was
when
this
the hacking, the attack started some 18 months ago.
18 months ago, right?
Now, the White House has been saying, look, we didn't want to further impact the election, say this past summer, to start going after Russia, pouring gasoline on the fire. Some critics obviously not buying that, but here's Eric Schultz, spokesman for the White House, explaining their side.
The president is leaving office in a couple weeks, but he's the president from now until then. And the president-elect, once he assumes office on January 20th, will be in a position to make these sorts of decisions. Our bottom line is that what Russia has been engaged in over the last few months and years is unacceptable. It's outside the norms of diplomatic behavior, and the president is sending a message today to tell them to cut it out. And that's why he ordered aggressive actions.
Because when you tell Vladimir Putin to cut it out, that's exactly what he does.
Oh, he always does it. Yeah, he just listens to whatever you say.
Did you ever do that with your sisters?
Cut
we saw
it
them
out.
on the Christmas show. Cut it out.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't
that doesn't
work.
work, and it hasn't proven to work as well. So Kellyanne Conway often speaking out and laying out these things in a way that's helpful to understand from their perspective.
There's another
obviously,
side of the story.
This is all being handed to the next administration coming in. To
Just like the
President-elect
Israel
Trump
situation.
as well. And Kellyanne Conway was on Hannity last night saying that she really hopes that this is not just about politics. Here's what she said.
Really disappointed to read in David Sanger's New York Times piece this evening the allegation or the supposition that perhaps one reason that these sanctions are taking place is to, quote, box in President-elect Trump, forcing him to take a position or otherwise once he takes office. I hope that this isn't motivated by politics even a little bit. I would say it's just remarkable to me that we're talking about sanctions against Russia just days after I would call sanctions against Israel. So I think just in the last couple of days, you see this flurry of activity by a tough President Obama as he exits office, and I guess is burnishing those last couple of moments, semicolons worth of his legacy. But at the same time, the new president will have an opportunity to re-examine our relationships geopolitically.
there she got her shot in, a semicolon of a legacy. Because let's not forget what the same president was saying during the previous presidential race, 2012, when Mitt Romney confronted him about, and stood his ground in that case, Mitt Romney, and said, this is our biggest geopolitical foe. And, Barack Obama says the 80s called, they want their foreign policy back. And Mitt Romney was mocked. He was right 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
And at that time, President Obama was saying, hey, let's maybe be friends with Vladimir Putin. Remember the other moment in that campaign where he said, if I get reelected, I'll have more flexibility to work with Putin.
Well, we weren't supposed to hear that part, Ed.
Right, we weren't.
It
was like a hot mic, basically.
The tables have turned.
But now Donald Trump is the guy that they're accusing of, he's just too close to Putin.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're being told, too, that it was their influence that turned this entire election. Let's be clear. No one wants any foreign entity meddling in any way in our election, so that's not good, Republican or Democrat, no matter what.
Absolutely.
But this was not an election hacking. That's what but the mainstream media is still trying to tell us.
Hacking of emails, but not the election results.
There was hacking, but nothing with votes and vote counting on election day.
But what's the headline?
But that's what's so interesting, though, because President Obama was the one that said that it wasn't hacking that impacted the election, right? He was the one that said that. Do we even have that sound?
I don't know if we have that sound. If we do, we'll play it, but I don't think we do. But we do have headlines from different newspapers today still using the phrase election hacking. Look at that. The failing New York Times says Obama strikes back at Russia for election hacking. USA Today, election hacking. ABC News, election hacking. It's hacking related to
can I give you the other side of the story?
Yes.
The New York Times.
But yours doesn't say the failing.
Oh, yours doesn't. The other.
Ed is a newsman.
Does it say something different in yours?
It just says the New York Times. I don't know. It didn't come in. The paper boy didn't bring it in at the hotel.
So that's it.
But your point is valid.
And we do have the sound now of President Obama saying just a few weeks ago that it wasn't hacking that impacted this election. Let's play that.
I can assure the public that there was not the kind of tampering with the voting process that was of concern and will continue to be of concern going forward, that the votes that were cast were counted. They were counted appropriately. We have not seen evidence of machines being tampered with. So that assurance I can provide.
You can see how tortured his answer kind of was in terms of, because he was admitting there, this at the end of the day didn't impact the actual election results.
But isn't that what he said yesterday, though, the reason why they put forward these sanctions?
Well, that they were trying to interfere and meddling. Right. But at the end of the day, President Obama himself at that news conference acknowledged it didn't change the election results. And the Fox poll, if you look at it, I've got the numbers here, the effect of Russia's attempts to influence the presidential election using these cyber attacks, no real effect. 59% helped Trump, 32%. So look, in the days ahead, when he takes office, Donald Trump will have to deal with this. Yeah. He's going to have an early decision. And that's what Kellyanne Conway was talking about. That this is a little bit of a trap by the Obama administration, because the new president will have to decide, do I let these sanctions go forward or do I reverse them? If he reverses them, immediately the Democrats are going to say, you're being nice to Vlad, you're too close to Russia. So it's going to be an early test for him on the foreign policy.
Very big and early tests on substance. It's not about slaps on the wrist anymore. This is a new opportunity to engage differently with Russia. You just don't want these roadblocks being thrown up in the last 3 weeks, which is why I think it's so unfortunate.
And that seems a lot of people are saying that's exactly what this is, just some landmines to leave for President-elect Donald Trump. We got to get to some other headlines this morning, and Jillian Turner is here this morning with some headlines. Good to see you, Jillian.
It's good to see you guys. I'm going to be reporting on what you guys say off mic all morning.
All right. So we're excited about that.
Folks at home want to know.
Hot mic.
And I got the info. We're going to turn to some headlines now with a Fox News alert. The Texas police officer shot during a traffic stop was hit by his partner's bullet. It turns out Officer Chris Bumpus shot in the stomach as he tried to arrest a man with an outstanding warrant just outside Fort Worth. His partner opening fire on the suspect as he attacked Bumpus. Both were found wounded. Bumpus is now out of surgery, thankfully, and in stable condition. As you know, he's a Navy veteran who was just named Rookie of the Year by his department. So congratulations on that. We hope he gets better soon. Unprecedented security now in the works for Times Square on New Year's Eve as ISIS warns of new attacks. This is a live look at Times Square just around the corner, where you can see sand-filled trucks will be blocking streets to protect the nearly 2 million folks who are planning to ring in their new year there. 7,000 police officers will patrol the streets as helicopters keep watch from overhead. Right now, there aren't any credible threats against Times Square in particular, but police are warning folks about the concern over lone wolf attacks. And a manhunt ramping up at this hour for an escaped inmate right here in New York City. The police say you'll know if you spot 31-year-old Daniel Ortiz because he's still wearing his leg shackles. Ortiz, who's accused of stealing from the Macy's in New York's Herald Square, was taken to the hospital before being taken to jail. Police say this security photo shows him after he slipped out of an exam room and took off. Now, some celebrity news. Outraged by the list of celebrities snubbing the president-elect Trump, one famous face says it's time for the, quote, sissies in Hollywood to stop going with the status quo. Bristol Palin says she's sick of how uncool it is to be conservative. Writing on her own blog, she said, either Hollywood is that far off base or we have so many sissies in the spotlight. It's a little scared they're too scared to stand for what they believe in. Those are your headlines. There's no sissies at Fox News.
Yeah, that's right.
That is true, including you, Jillian. Thank you, Jillian.
All right. Now, there's this painting hanging in the U.S. Capitol. We've just learned about this, and it depicts police officers as pigs in a year when 135 officers were killed in the line of duty. 64, by the way, were shot. You can see the painting there. Now, the congressman involved in this, I should say by way of context, that there typically are a lot of paintings in the Capitol when you walk between the office buildings because they do these contests from each person's district and schools, and they try to highlight, okay, my district has this really cool piece of art, a landscape or something, but to throw into the mix and not have somebody say, well, wait a second, this one's offensive. The colors may be nice and all that, but the message in it is disgusting. Why would you put that up in the Capitol? And, it comes to New Year's and we talk a lot about the celebrity deaths and, George Michael, great legacy, and Debbie Reynolds, and all of that is fine to talk and reflect and remember. But how often do we or anyone, how much time do we spend on the police officers who try to protect us and were killed? Over 100 of them this year.
Well, not just them. I mean, even their family members, where they have to kiss them goodbye every morning, knowing that they could be in harm's way. They don't know what could happen. We said these numbers: 135 of cops that were killed in line of duty just this past year, 64 cops that were killed by shooting alone.
So instead, let's throw a painting up that depicts them as pigs.
If there's one place where they should be reflected positively, it's of course our Capitol and the folks that are supposed to have their back. But hopefully that changes by shining a light on it. All right, icy relations between the Obama administration and Moscow getting worse. So where does this leave President-elect Trump when he takes office? Former UN Ambassador John Bolton is going to weigh in next.